This is Debt Free in 30 Technical Tidbits Edition, where we answer short questions from our listeners about debt, money, and personal finance. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
This is our first Technical Tidbits edition of Debt Free in 30. It's a shorter version of our podcast where we answer just one listener question. And this is a question we get a lot. The question is, should I use money in my RRSP to pay off debt? Well, it's a good question. The answer depends on how much debt you have and what type of debt you have. So on the surface, this appears to be a relatively simple question to answer. If you owe money and you own something of value, it makes sense to turn your asset into money you can use to pay off your debt. So, for example, if you own an older car that you no longer need, it makes sense to sell it and use the cash to pay off your credit card. It's a no-brainer. But RRSPs are different, and they're different because of one little three-letter word: tax. If you bought your car for $5,000 4 years ago and you sell it today for $3,000, you don't have to pay any income tax on the sale because, well, you didn't earn any income. In fact, in this example, you technically lost money, so you end up getting to keep the entire $3,000 and you don't have to worry about paying any income tax. It's totally different with an RRSP. If you take $3,000 out of your registered retirement savings plan, you must include the $3,000 in your income, and you pay tax on that $3,000 at whatever your marginal tax rate is. That's because an RRSP is not a way to save tax, it's a way to defer tax. You get a tax break when you contribute to your RRSP, but you pay tax when you take it out. And it doesn't matter if the investment went up or down in value. If you bought some stocks 5 years ago for $5,000 and today they're only worth $3,000 and you cash it in and take the money out of your RRSP, you're still paying tax on the $3,000 that you're taking out of your RRSP. The theory is that you contribute to your RRSP when you're working and in your high tax earning years, and you take the money out when you're retired and you're in a lower tax bracket. Makes sense. But if you're still working and take money out of your RRSP, you may still be in a high tax bracket, so you pay a lot of tax on the withdrawal. What's worse, you may not even know how much tax you'll have to pay. If you take out under $5,000 from your RRSP, the bank, at least in Ontario, will withhold 10% for tax. The rules are a bit different in Quebec. But at the end of the year, if you happen to be in the 40% tax bracket, you have to pay 40% in tax. Now, you only paid 10% up front, so surprise, you end up owing another 30% to bring it up to the 40%, which would be another $1,500 in this example. That's a big tax bite. So back to our question, should you take money out of your RRSP to pay off your debt? Well, you have to calculate how much you'll end up paying in tax when you do. If you're in the 40% tax bracket and you take out $10,000, you really only get to keep $6,000 once you pay the $4,000 in taxes that you're going to owe. So is it worth it to lose $10,000 from your RRSP to get $6,000 to pay off debt? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Part of the decision depends on how much you're paying in interest on your debt. If you have $6,000 in payday loans at a huge interest rate, and you're only earning 1% in your RRSP, it's probably an easy decision to use the money to pay off your debt. If you have a mortgage at 3% interest, cashing in your RRSP and taking a big tax hit probably isn't worth it unless you really want to be debt-free. But what if you have a lot of debt, say $50,000 or $60,000 or even more owing on credit cards, bank loans, income taxes, and other unsecured debts? If you don't have enough in your RRSP to cash it in, pay the tax, and pay off your debts in full, there is another option. If you have more debt than you can handle, and if you're behind on your bill payments and collection agents are calling, it may be time to consider a consumer proposal or personal bankruptcy. Here's the key point. It is possible to go bankrupt and not lose your RRSP. The Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, which is federal law, says so. Section 67 of the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act says that if you go bankrupt, your trustee is not allowed to take your RRSP except for any contributions you made in the last 12 months. So if you have an RSP that you haven't contributed to in the last year and you go bankrupt, the trustee can't take your RSP. If you have an RRSP through work that you contribute, let's say $100 a month to, and you've been contributing for 10 years, all you lose is the $1,200 you've contributed in the last 12 months. So if you have $50,000 in debts that are more than you can ever hope to repay, and an RRSP with no contributions in the last year, a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy may be a good option. You can clear up your debts and not lose your RRSP. I've met with many people over the years who've tried to keep up by draining their RSP for the last year or two, and now that it's completely drained, they come to see me because they can't keep up, and now they need to go bankrupt. I say, gee, it's too bad you didn't come to see me 2 years ago, because we could have done the bankruptcy or a consumer proposal 2 years ago, and you could have kept your RSP. Now that you've already cashed it in, it's gone. So here's my advice. If your debts are small and you aren't earning much in your RSP anyways, and you can afford to pay the tax, fine, go ahead, cash in your RSP, pay off your debts. However, if your debts are large, and even if cashing in your RSP won't solve your problem, you need to consult with a licensed insolvency trustee. We can crunch the numbers and help you decide if you should cash in your RSP to pay your debts or if you should consider other options. That's the answer on this Technical Tidbits edition of Debt Free in 30. A full explanation of how RRSPs work in a bankruptcy can be found on our website at hoyes.com. That's HOYES.com. Thanks for listening. Until next week, I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30.